I mean, I know what else more needs because they're saying, you got to go to court and prove all these things. But it gets, it's like, man, what? All right. Again, but when that came out, I really think this blew up. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. For the most part, squatting when someone moves into a vacant building or onto an uninhabited land, it's considered a civil matter, right? There we go. So it's a civil matter. That's okay. So there we go. It's a civil matter. So if you don't say a crime has been committed, right? Crime, criminal. And so police aren't empowered, right, to move someone, right? There we go. The owner's request, right? So they say they broke in, right, or something. Well, I mean, don't lie. But one way to get somebody out about your house is to say some DV happened. If you say some DV happened, there's a high percentage chance somebody's going to jail. I believe it's in California or Florida. One of those might be multiple states, but I believe it's California and or Florida. If you call the police and say some DV happened, and anybody got any type of scratches, anything like that, somebody goes to jail, like, or they at least get removed from the premises because they have so many cases. And they say, look, if you call us for DV, we got to take somebody to jail. Not that you're gonna get, I'm not saying arrested or taken to jail, but somebody has got to deal with the situation. I'm about to keep calling us out here because y'all drunk and just keep fighting each other. Homeowners can file eviction notices through the courts to remove an unwanted squatter, a process that can take weeks or months. I know some people had years, though. So far, Florida and West Virginia have enacted laws that classify squatting as a criminal. Look, y'all can say what you want about Florida, but man, some of these laws, I mean, Florida be moving swiftly on some of this stuff. With some of these laws. Maybe because they got so much crazy stuff going on in Florida. Florida's law creates a process for sheriffs to remove squatters. Georgia Republican Governor Brian Kemp this week signed a similar bill into law. Florida, Georgia line. Several other states, Alabama again, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, so mostly southern states here, Republican states, have pending legislation. The anti-squatter fever also has spread to Capitol Hill, where a U.S. House bill would make squatting a deportable offense. And see, this is what I was talking about. You got the state level and you got the federal level. At the federal level, they're likely not going to do anything where they're going to, at the state level, real estate, right? It's going to be at the state level. But if you're talking about dealing with immigrants, then, that's something the federal level would be making like a blanket type of law for, where if you find an immigrant, and it's kind of just be deportable, so either legal or illegal, right? And they're squatting, then they're saying they'd be a deportable offense. Which this obviously be for immigrants, right? You can't deport an American citizen. I just say do deport them, right? They put them in jail, right? So, as a version of deportation for citizens. Anyways, proponents of these bills have singled out migrants and immigrants in the country without authorization as squatters, frequently referring to Monroe's video, but otherwise presenting scant data to show that it is a widespread problem. I don't know how widespread it is for migrants or immigrants. I know it's widespread in general, but I'm not saying I've seen anything a lot of migrants, immigrants about it, doing it. After video evidence of their plan to take over homes emerged, we're ensuring Floridians are protected from this egregious and brazen scheme. Yeah, it's one of those things where even if it's not happening widespread, still something to put on the books, because you can't be somewhere that you don't live at unless the owner says you can be there. And the fact that we have this window of time in which, people, once they stay there, if you don't tell them to leave, then the police can't kick them out because it's not a criminal offense. It's like, well, let's make it a criminal offense then. And I'm not telling people to do that, but that's some of the DV situation. Like, you put people in positions where they're law-abiding citizen, they're, they got real estate, so they're paying these tax dollars, right? Their property taxes. And now you're saying a crime has to be committed for the police to actually do something. And it's like, well, I mean, just come get them out. Right? It's a crazy situation you put people in versus trying to figure out, like, okay, figuring out people who are squatters, needing somewhere to stay. By the way, too, migrants and immigrants, if you come here, right, and by definition, you need to find somewhere to stay. You have somewhere to stay, become a squatter. I mean, that's kind of like, where are we going to put you at? Well, for people who, in short, are American citizens, they become homeless for whatever reason. Right? Let's not get into the reason, but for whatever reason, and now they become squatters. It's like you can't do that. Okay, General Ashley Moody. Okay, that was said by Helping Floridians, by Florida Republican Attorney General Ashley Moody in a news release when that state's bill became law. Okay, she criticized President Joe Biden's border policy, saying, "Oh, border situation, my goodness." In Oklahoma, Ford's bill would allow county sheriffs to immediately remove an alleged squatter from private property. Wow. So we're going from, weeks and months to immediately. Some people dealing with years. New York City people might be dealing with for years. Like, it's crazy. When this happens in Oklahoma, the process of getting an unwanted person off your property gets bogged down in civil courts. True, right? For evictions, and it may be months to get that person out of your house at forward. And by the way, too, I mean, all this stuff that people can be doing in the house, right? I mean, because you got to come in, that clean it up. Imagine if this is your primary residence. Like, some people out there believe it's their primary residence, like they went on vacation, something like that, and it's their primary house. And they can imagine one of your parents passed away, or both of them pass away, or I guess one of them had to pass away, the last one, right? You're trying to do renovations, like you're doing, getting all that stuff together from an estate standpoint. You might have siblings, you're grieving obviously because your parents passed away. Then you're trying to get your parents' house sold, and next thing you know, you have squatters in there, and it's like you call the police, and it's like, well, this is my house now. I mean, it was my mom and or dad's house, right? And they died. Okay, so we're getting all this stuff together. We're trying to do renovations, or we're doing renovations, and after renovations got completed, these people came in here. It's like, and then it's like, my parents have owned this house since the 60s. Why is this a conversation? And that's when like it's going to get like really confusing. And it's unfortunate, the situation that police officers get put in, where it's like, look, this is a civil matter, and you didn't say they broke in. And in short, you can't change it now to say they broke in. Is just what I've seen people say in various states. So it's crazy. That's why I remember one time, as I detract, one time, this is last year, it was on the way to Jordan's birthday party last year. My wife and I were in the Starbucks line, and I made a real tight turn, right? This lady did not hit the lady, but I made this tight turn as we're turning in the Starbucks. And so then my wife and I in the Starbucks line, the lady who I had made a tight turn against, she didn't come, and I quote, she said, "I heard you hit my car." And my wife and I looked at her and said, "We didn't hear anything. If you're gonna say if you're saying you heard us hit your car, well, we didn't hear that." Right now, I mean, it is hearsay, I guess. So I was like, okay, cool. And get out of the line. I'm looking at the car. I'm looking like, yo, I got like almost at the time, like 50,000 miles in this car. You got to like show me some, paint, like clear paint getting traded. My car was blue. Her car was like brownish, that brownish color, brownish burgundy range color. And I'm like, what? She pointed like this little faint scratch, right? And she had a Acura MDX. This lady had Acura MDX. And she's trying to say like I hit like above her taillight, which is pretty high on this larger SUV. And I have a Honda Accord, a Honda Accord. She's trying to say the bottom of my bumper hit like the top of her back bumper. And I'm like, it's not even, how could they get that high? I mean, that's not even possible. And I was like, fine. Like, I didn't hit your car, but I'm not going to pull off. So then, you say, there's a hit and run. So I'm going to call the police, and I'm going to tell them, what happened. I'm like, yo, I didn't hit this lady. This lady saying I hit her. Y'all need to come up here and figure out what it is. So I mean, so sometimes, right, you need to, when you call the police, you need to communicate to them in a way that they can actually do something. In short, where they're saying, this is a civil matter. And if you say someone broke in, then they can turn into a criminal matter and actually do something. That when you first call the police, that initial call, when you're talking to the operator, that is, in short, the initial piece of evidence for any case, right? Because you call the police, that stuff is recorded. And look, I'm telling them, like, look, I did not hit this lady, right? It's on the line. I didn't hit her. She's trying to say that I hit her. I didn't hit her. I'm sitting here waiting, so I don't got to deal with hit and run. And so when people are dealing with squatters, a lot of times they're saying, hey, you need to say someone broke in so we can come from like a criminal offense. And a lot of times, again, we talk about shootings and things of that nature, you don't want to lie on people, but also too, when you're dealing with this situation where you're trying to figure out how to get people out of your house in a timely manner while you're waiting, in short, for the laws to catch up. Because now all they're going to do is they're going to say, you can say they're squatters, and squatters is a criminal offense. And so you don't have to say someone broke in. But a lot of the times in most of these states, it's just a civil matter when you say they're a squatter. So the position that you're putting the citizens and the police in, is a very dangerous one. Because again, you got people in your house and you can't kick them out because they're just squatters. It's a civil matter. You can't change the locks. Like then if you do that stuff, you change the locks on them. Now you're breaking the law, and it gets crazy. I remember in Maryland, not in Maryland, probably still the case, but in Maryland, there was a time a handful of years ago, probably before the pandemic, and someone had broken into somebody's house, right? So someone broke in, committed a crime. However, when they broke in, they like landed on something crazy and they broke through the window or whatever, and they like broke their ankle. The burglar sued the homeowners, I believe, for getting hurt. And it's like, what?